So I'm Chris Geith from Michigan State University and really enjoying the conference today. I'm going to give you kind of a status report of a project that we've started the conversation about 2 years ago and is currently a funded pilot and planning grant from the Gates Foundation that we are just over halfway through. So this time next year, when we have the next Open Ed conference, we'll actually be providing empirical evidence of the results. So I'm happy to share with you our progress so far. Our question for this project is really, in what ways can open educational resources impact agriculture in Africa? And there's quite a complex web of people that we have to work with to have that kind of an impact. This includes faculty, and because of some of the priorities of the Gates Foundation, at the time we started, we've focused on master's level agriculture for faculty at African institutions. But we're also working with what we call community-wide partners, which are the vast array of NGOs and non-governmental organizations, governmental organizations, civic organizations that support agriculture, working with individual farmers, smallholder farmers, farmer cooperatives, value chain organization, and businesses. So it's quite a complex web when it comes to agriculture solutions. And then also resource partners, which we kind of think of as content partners. These are like the CGAR centers, which are the research centers usually funded by big government money. There are local research organizations. There are publishers. There's a whole another ecosystem of information. This includes what people do with thesis publications. So we're working with all these groups, and we're focusing on the middle pieces. And if you saw Nathan's presentation just now, some of the things we're doing in this middle circle are working with Discover Ed to make these resources more visible. So we're working on discoverability. We're working on designing for sharing to make resources interoperable and accessible. We're working on understanding the incentives and motivations and feedback loops for the different players in the system. So this is kind of a big picture of our project. Now, why is it called AgShare? So it's about agriculture, which are all these elements of animals, plants, fisheries, and so on. And we put the emphasis on the word share because I think we're really more about OER as process as opposed to OER as content. So we have a lot of going on in terms of the design of collaboration in each of what we have are now 4 pilots. And this is what our project is really about, building relationships among all these players and building the capacity of the university faculty, not only to create content, that's kind of a lot goes into that, but it's really about their capacity to form and maintain relationships with this network of people. And why that's important came out of a convening we had almost 2 years ago now in Seattle at the Gates Foundation, where we had about 20 people around the table. We had technology people like Joel from Connections and Wayne McIntosh from Wiki Educator. Yes, thank you. I don't think David Wiley was there, but you were there in spirit. And we had university faculty and administrators from several different African universities, a whole slew of people. And this is one of the panels of notes that came out of the meeting. And if you just kind of scan this, you get an idea of where their issues are. And if you look in the upper right-hand corner where it says gap, the gap is in information, and they need tools, textbooks, and things like that. But really, the hugest gap that they've been trying to solve over time is narrowing the gap between the theory that's taught in the classes and the actual application in the field. And one of the ways that this shows up is when master's level students go out into the field to do their research, they already have a preconceived notion of what they're looking for. And it just so happens most of the master's students that are going out in the field are not from a farmer background, they're actually from an urban environment, so they really don't have the context. And when they go out from the theoretical perspective, they've already formed their hypothesis, not really understanding the context. So part of the gap is closing the distance there. The other thing we talked about is, well, what would the OER solution look like? And if you scan this slide and the next one, there are a lot of process words on here, all right? So yeah, they need materials, but more important, they need different ways to engage with their students. They need different ways for their students to engage with farmers and farmer organizations. So it gets back to that kind of those 3 circles that I shared before. Okay, so our vision came out of, we had a second convening in Nairobi with a little bit different players. And we focused on what are we really going to try to do together. And I think that this vision, as long as it is actually rather telling. because it really focuses on the impact and welfare and health of farmers, of which master's level agriculture instruction is just one little piece of all that, right? And it's pretty far removed from actually impacting smallholder farmers. But look at the second part, and I think this is where we're finding the innovation in ag share is occurring, is empowering master's level students and graduates of the African institutions. But right now we're really engaging with students, working with them to achieve the change while they're students and when they graduate. We haven't gotten to that phase yet. By leveraging African knowledge through OER processes and products and integrated into universities. And then the global knowledge pool idea is about the discoverability and visibility of their work, because there's actually quite a lot of quite a lot of information, but it is not open. And we found in agriculture, even compared to the medical field, there are so many databases, but they're not even federated, right? And they're not open. Most publications are they're not even open access, right? It's a very closed world, agriculture. We were surprised to find. These were the people that were at our planning meeting last year, and we're meeting again in March to kind of share our findings and see where we want to go next. We're working in 3 countries, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Kenya, with 4 universities, and 2 of these are connected with regional university networks, so we can kind of get the economic impact going, where these are designed to be, some of these case studies and course modules are designed to be replicated in online and blended learning courses in the RUForum network and the CMAAE network. RUForum is a regional universities forum of agriculture universities that share curriculum, share degrees on purpose. That's one of the things that they do. And also CMAAE is the collaborative masters in ag economics. And again, they share curriculum in a blended learning format. So that was by design. Here's a summary of the pilots, the CMAAE pilot, the Makerere University, which is in Uganda, which is one of the oldest well-known universities in agriculture in that country. United States International University, that's the USIU column, which is a little bit different. They're not an ag school, unlike the others. They're the only one that's not an ag school, but they are creating an agribusiness program in relationship to Moi University, who is an ag school, and then Haramaya in Ethiopia. And this table just summarizes what they're working on. There's quite a variety here. So CMAAE is working on case studies, and they're trying to create a replicable model by which students can create learning case studies, teaching and learning case studies, not like Harvard, detail, but mostly video stories of what's going on. And most of these pilots, it turns out, are using video as a storytelling mechanism. So CMAAE is doing case studies, and they want to replicate that model throughout the CMAAE network, because one of their biggest gaps in curriculum is they don't have enough local examples to illustrate the points of the theory in their curriculum. Makerere, I'm going to come back to. USIU is using their journalist students in concert with the subject matter experts at USIU who know the business side, and Moi University who know the ag side, to do some agribusiness curriculum. So that's an interesting role for journalism students to be part of the team. And again, they're relying on video to capture the story. And then Haramaya is working on a whole course that's going to be one of the courses in the brand new RUForum master's degree in agriculture and information communication management, which is a brand new program they've just agreed to about 18 months ago, and this will be one of the first courses meant to be replicated throughout the network. So that's how those are shaping up. Let me talk about Makerere, though, because I think it gets to this model. One of the things that we were hoping we could design on purpose, so the design of collaboration, would be that we could figure out ways to help the faculty build new relationships or build on existing relationships. Most of them were new, by the way, and use students as a way, kind of like, who's here from the University of Michigan? You've heard the D-Scribe model from University of Michigan? Okay, so the D-Scribe kind of gave us a clue, and we thought, that really works well, and why do the students do it? Some of them are paid, but some of them do it because they want to have a closer relationship with the faculty, and they want to kind of be in the mode with the domain of knowledge that they're learning about. So we thought, how far can we take this in these pilots? So Makerere has taken it as farthest of anyone so far. And what they've actually done is use our pilot as a catalyst to curriculum change. So what they're doing is they have, let me just show you a picture. Here are the 2 students working with 2 colleges, one in agriculture, one college of agriculture, Makerere, the other college is the vet school. The 2 deans are very collaborative and looking to innovate and solve that gap between theory and practice across their curriculum. what they've decided to do is they've came up with a whole other way for 2 master's level students to kind of be the pioneers to do something different with how they do their master's thesis work. And what they've done is they've set it up so that they can actually get course credit for going out in the field before they come up with their research hypothesis for their thesis and do formative information gathering, almost like a social scientist would do, and that's not the methods that they use in research in agriculture and the vet school. But they're going out, they're getting credit, they're getting formative data to inform their hypothesis. While they're there, they are getting some initial sample data for, this is all about milk and quality production, dairy production. They are capturing stories or capturing little case studies and illustrations that then the faculty that are part of this project are going to use as examples and illustrations in the courses back in the classroom. But the materials are made by these students as part of this, what will end up being probably a 2 or 3 credit experience when they're out in the field in Queen Elizabeth Park, early working with about 50 dairy farmers that are part of a dairy cooperative. So to do that, they've had to get permission to make sure that these students could use this process. This is totally new, at least in how this university operates in terms of research. And these 2 students are very excited. They've been going out in the field now. At this phase, they're in the formative piece. They haven't come back yet and formalized their thesis, and then they'll go back out. They're just in the first phase. And it's been really exciting to see the level of conversation, dialogue, collaboration, kind of barrier breaking that they've been doing, not just at the faculty level with the students, like an independent study, but this is really at the department and the dean level, and it's gone beyond the dean level because it kind of sets a new precedent for thesis level research across the whole university. So I'm not saying any policies have changed yet, but those are the kinds of discussions that they're having. And it's all been catalyzed. The circumstances were there, but this project really moved it forward. And by providing an amplification point and a catalyst point and a little bit of funding, not a lot, to kind of get some barriers down there. Most of the funding is going to pay for the students, the master's level students, and some equipment that they need to do some of this formative piece, some travel, but that's really where the funding's going. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, and I'm very excited about that particular one because it's a great example of this 3 circles. They have already existing in at least the ag department was what they called an innovation platform, which is a formal way to gather the community-wide partners together on a regular basis and not just ask for their input, but to get them involved in forming the relationship, in this case with the dairy farmers, on a regular basis. They actually have meetings when they're at Queen Elizabeth Park. This is also a formal way to involve resource partners. So we have conversations going on with the CIGAR centers, and we have conversations going on with FAO, because as it turns out, the courses that will be featuring this student material, also we gave them a resource specialist, and we said, here's some resources that might be of interest to you. Which ones do you want us to pursue? And there are many resources that are available, but they're not openly licensed. They're not licensed even in a way that you can redistribute them in another form, right? So you have to always go back to the source. You can't even distribute them on a CD or a DVD. So we're playing catalyst, and we'll see how far we get. But like I said, agriculture seems to be more closed than other disciplines for some unknown reason. We'll figure that out as we go. This is these are from photographs from the McCrary University pilot, and you can see, if you can read this banner in the background, it says AgShare McCrary University, and it's really their view of this is OER as a catalyst to help them improve the efficiency of the dairy value chain. I don't know if you can see that on the banner in the background. So the message in this particular one is we are really focused on helping them achieve their research goals and using OER as a catalyst to really change the pedagogical process that they're using for these master's level students, and really using students, not using them, but enabling students to expand their work in the field and bring back the stories into the classroom for the faculty. And I think there's lots of potential for that. The other, USIU isn't quite as engaged. They have a little bit different kind of project, but the CMAAE pilots, the case studies that they're creating are very similar. Now, McCrary is the most in-depth because they had some things going on before we got there. But they, I don't know, I just think this is a very promising model. So what we're hoping to do as a result of our efforts here is we're really being paid by the Gates Foundation to gather evidence, empirical evidence that OER can make a difference. And that's going to be cost benefits of going across the network. It's going to be our involvement with these community-wide partners and hopefully finding ways by design that they can use some of these materials. Already, some of the people in the dairy cooperative are really interested in the student work. They're interested in the videos. They want to use them for their own purposes. There's issues of translation and distribution that we have to work our way through. But because these relationships are part of the pilot, it's not like we're waiting for them to use the stuff later. We're designing it, the collaboration, in a way where the resource is part of the collaboration. We're also working with Discover Ed, like I said, on the increased visibility. It's very important for the student work and the faculty work and the information that they create to be visible to the rest of the world. It's really an important value that came out in the very first convening. So that's why we've been working with Discover Ed and looking for other ways to make this work more visible. And I think something that we didn't appreciate when you first started, but is becoming an important ongoing value, I think, of AgShare is this advocacy for open sharing by design by all the players in the system. So the NGOs I've talked to so far are interested in participating and opening up their own content and getting involved and figuring, learning from us the processes that they can incorporate into their own workflow for the trainings that they do. There's lots of potential there. And I said some of the CGAR centers and the FAO, Commonwealth of Learning, and others are very interested in enabling the use of their information because they're not aware of the disability that they create in their current ways of publishing and distributing their material. And then I think what will come out of this in the long run, maybe its lasting value of AgShare past the project, is going to be this catalyst role for students. If we could shape that into something formal that crosses institutional barriers, right now we're calling these people AgShare Fellows, but I can see, because students have a lot of enthusiasm, they like to have things formally, as part of their career building and reputation building, and I think there's lots of potential to shape that into something that can cross country barriers, cross university barriers as a really defined student role. Not just as a production arm, but as a way that they do their work and they share their work as evidence of their performance. So that's our project. Thanks for your attention. I think you have a couple minutes for questions.
So we've got about 7 minutes if there's some questions. Of course, it would be in the top back corner.
The fun of being the moderator.
Because it's at the master's level, your project, I'm wondering whether you could also qualify your project more in the area of open access than in open educational resources. Because at the master's level, there will not be much learning materials constructed anymore. And hearing what you're saying about the master's thesis and all the other work that's being made available, it's a very nice project, I think, but it could also be qualified in the open access area. Do you agree with that, or is it too narrow then?
No, well, what do you mean by, so when you say, the open access area, what do you mean exactly?
Well, open access, of course, is making available all the research results and the results that students are producing.
Okay, yes.
Which is not to say that you're producing learning materials, because at the master's level, there's not much focus anymore, at least in Europe, on creating learning materials. So that's my clue.
Yes.
Is it closer to that area of sharing content that's being produced by students, although it's not necessarily, let's say, constructed as learning material, because the students are not concentrating on making learning materials, right?
Well, they are the students at McRae, for example, and the ones in the CMAAE that are doing the case studies. They are students who are, as part of their work, as part of their research work, creating materials designed to be shared openly and reused and redistributed. So and for those materials, they are designed to be OER, designed to share. And that includes their initial formative data sets, by the way. So another change I didn't mention was, the current practice is you go out in the field, you gather your data, it's totally closed up until you publish it years later, all right? And in Africa, your work, it doesn't get out anywhere. It sits on the shelf, the gray matter people talk about. So the gray documents. So I think it does qualify as both open access and OER, only because the variety of information spans things designed to be shared and things just designed to be seen but not touched, which would be, papers, theses, and things like that. For those things, they are just looking at a different type of licensing, but they are designing those things, even just the open access, to be used and redistributed and be found and visible, but not all of the research materials that will come out of these projects will be designed to meet David Wiley's 4 R's.
Okay, but because OA is typically 2 R's, right?
2 R's.
It's really about reuse,
That's-
redistribute. It's
yes.
not about revise anything.
Yes. Thanks for the question. It's a good point.
More questions? Somebody down in the bottom corner.
There's somebody in the middle. You can stop on the way.
No, here, we'll go here first.
First, I think what you're doing is great. And
Thank you.
The impact of these resources is good.
Mhm.
When's it going to be? When do you expect that the first body of research to come out? Or when,
By the end of March, we'll have our initial data that we're gathering, but we don't have the time we're going to ask for an extension for 6 months to a year. We haven't decided quite yet. That'll be an extension proposal due in January.
What, 2012?
Yeah, I'm thinking another year we'll actually have the data that we want, because these materials will not be used in classrooms or have time to be used. We're in creation mode now, all right? So the following it through the use and reuse is going to take more months. So I think we'll have really good data in about a year.
Has there been much research on the impact of OER tools in the field?
In the past,
Yeah.
yeah, we did a whole landscape report before we started this thing, and it's just totally fresh ground when it comes to OER in agriculture. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why I asked that question. Because it's new ground,
Mm-hmm.
how interested is the FAO, Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations in Rome, which is the largest disseminator of expertise in food and agriculture?
Mm-hmm.
How are they supporting your efforts? Because I see that there's a mash of interests here.
Well, I'll tell you, there's FAO is huge, right? And they're very siloed. Their silos have silos, right? So we found people in silos that are very interested in what we're doing, and they want to support it any way that they can. So far, the people we've talked to will do anything they can to avoid having to go back to their legal department and change the copyright, the default copyright. So I think I'm going to take a page out of Hal Plotkin's talk yesterday when he said, we might be, what was the slogan I came up with? I made a T-shirt. I was thinking of a T-shirt slogan. We might be disappointed or we might be frustrated, but we won't be deterred.
Even the UNESCO Forum on OER, when they wanted to publish their results at the end under a CC license, it was like moving a mountain to get permission to do a Creative Commons license on a report about OER.
Yeah, exactly.
So I had a question. I think your student fellow model or student catalyst model is really important, as you said. And I'm wondering if that is something that you're seeing as evolving through the course of the project so that you can define and put requirements on that so that then you can replicate it or it can be replicated in other situations.
That's exactly what we're doing. So we're kind of we're observers, right? So we kind of set things up, see what works. Not everything's going to work. We'll learn a lot from the failed pieces of it, and how those evolve in terms of how those student roles are defined in the different pilots. We're curious to see how similar or different they are across the pilots. And if there are similarities, what are the benefits of formalizing that role, and how do the faculty see it, and how do the students want to see it? So we have some social scientists as part of our program from our College of Com Arts that study incentives and motivations, especially in social systems, and we're really looking forward to their feedback that we'll have this spring, and that'll inform some of that. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, thank you.